Great to be back in Boca Raton. I'm trying to think, the last time we did the event here, what did we do it on? Do you remember? It was something good, I remember. And we did bill signing, and I think we did the Medal of Freedom too, Governor's Freedom Medal. Didn't we do that? Yeah, that was pretty cool. Okay, well, we're here today. I'm joined by Ray Rodriguez, who's the chairman, chancellor of the State University System of Florida. I also have president of Florida Atlantic University, Adam Hasner, who's been on the job. How long have you been on the job? 100 days. 100 days. Chairman of the University of South Carolina Board of Trustees, Thad Westbrook, is with us today, and they get appointed by the legislature to be on those boards, which is probably more treacherous politically than getting appointed by the governor. So good on you. We also have Senior Associate Vice Chancellor of Texas A&M University System, Dr. Shonda Gibson. So thank you for being here. So as you might expect, we're here today to talk about higher education, and I'm proud that Florida for many years now has been ranked as the #1 public university higher education system in the country. Part of the reason we earn that is because we have the lowest tuition of any state in the United States, and since I've been governor, the tuition that you pay is like $6,300 in state. That was true when I became governor, and it's still true today. We haven't moved it one penny. And so consequently, 77% of undergraduate students in Florida graduate loan-free and debt-free. And that is not the norm throughout the country. And the percentage continues to increase year over year. I mean, part of it is just the fact that, $6,000 isn't what it used to be, right? I mean, it used to be more inflation, all this stuff. So we've held the line, even as there has been overall inflation, and I think everybody knows in the last 30, 40 years there's been massive inflation in higher education, where we've had a lot of students around the country end up going deep into debt, and they graduate, and some of them end up in programs with degrees that are not worth very much, and they're really in a tough spot. So it's the opposite in Florida. And we have our student performance has gone up so much over the last 20, 30 years that you qualify, most of these students are qualifying for Bright Future scholarships, which is either 100% or 75% of your tuition paid for. So if you have that, you obviously don't need to go into any debt. But even if you don't, that tuition and the expenses, that's manageable if someone wants to work a part-time job or something. I mean, I did that a lot when I was coming up. So that's important, and we're really proud of that. We want to make sure that people can do that. We also have seen what's happened over many decades where some students are told you're not going to be successful unless you get a 4-year degree. That's not true. There's a lot of pathways other than a 4-year degree. So while we're proud of what FAU's doing here in Boca, we're proud of what FIU's doing in Miami, USF, I was there yesterday in Tampa, it's great, and that's a great pathway for a lot of people, but that's not the only pathway, and it's not the best pathway for some of our students as they mature through secondary school. And so we've really put an emphasis on workforce education. So we've more than doubled the apprenticeships that are available in the state of Florida. We have programs even now in middle school for vocational education. A lot of our high schools are doing really, really well, and students are actually graduating high schools in Florida with certifications in things like HVAC and electrical. Guess what? They're going to get hired when they have those types of skills. So there's more than one ways to go about it, and we're not telling you you've got to do this or you've got to do that, but what we are saying is that it's wrong if someone's telling you unless you get a 4-year degree, you're not going to be successful, because I think a lot of people that got pushed that way over the last many decades, a lot of them didn't even end up getting the degree, right? So you go, you take out debt, you toil for a few years, you don't get the degree. Well, you could have just started debt-free right out of high school and been better off at that point. And then some that get degrees are getting degrees that are in kind of more of these, let's just say, non-germane studies that we've seen percolate in academia over many decades. And so, again, that's just not a huge job market for some of the things that people are doing. So this is a great pathway, and we're really, really proud of it. We also, and I think a lot of people have seen what's happened on our university campuses since October 7th of 2023. It really exposed, I think, a soft underbelly of higher education, things that there was rot in the system for a long time. It wasn't just October 7th that caused it, but I think that revealed it in ways when you see things like Columbia University being overtaken by these Hamas demonstrators. You see basically these university administrators impotent in the face of really harassment of Jewish students, faculty, the things that were going on. That did cause a lot of people to say, what is going on these campuses? Now, this is something that we've been concerned about for a long time, because I just know that the people of Florida, they want the universities that they fund with their tax dollars to be about education, not indoctrination. They don't want to send their kids to universities, and instead of focusing on academic rigor, the pursuit of truth, preparing students to be citizens of the Republic, you end up in some type of ideological joyride, which is one, detached from what you really need to be successful, but then two, is likely not consistent with how they raise their kids. And you don't want to work 18 years to instill those values, turn them over, and all of a sudden they're taught something totally different. So higher education has veered throughout our country off really solid foundations that it was meant to be. So in Florida, we've not just talked about that, we've actually acted in ways to deliver reforms so that we can ensure we're operating on a solid foundation. We are the first state in the country, and we may still be the only state, I don't know if any of them have followed suit, to overhaul tenure in universities. And so we now have something called post-tenure review. And so all tenured professors now must undergo those reviews within 5 years, and they can be terminated for poor performance. And I think of what you see both from a financial perspective in universities, the biggest economic dead weight in running a university are unproductive tenured faculty, because they're just there like barnacles on a ship and they don't do anything. And so, you want to be able to process out, like if they're not doing. And then two, those tend to be the types that focus less on research and less on teaching and more on activism. And universities we're not trying to fund activist camps here. That's not what we want to do. If you want to be an activist, go apply to be a professor at Berkeley or some of these other places. I'm sure you'll fit right in, but that's not what we want to do. So using post-tenure review is something that's really important. And, they have done that in a number of universities. I know University of Florida, New College, some of these others. And the media would be like, oh, professors are fleeing Florida. And that's actually not, that's not really the case. It's if you have Marxist professors leaving Florida, that is a good thing for Florida. That is not a bad thing for Florida, but you're replacing these folks with folks who are coming in to teach and to do research. And that's one of the things that we did. We said, okay, you got to hold faculty accountable. You can't just say you get tenure and you can do whatever you want for 30 years. You need to have accountability, but you also need to make sure that we have an ability to bring in really good people. So we have overhauled the hiring ability. So, Adam Hasner, as the president, he can go to MIT, and if there's somebody that's good, he can say, listen, you can come to here, and they can offer them a position. The board of trustees can work and offer positions. We don't want to get into a place where very talented individuals are denied being hired because they're being blackballed by some ideological litmus test. That is unacceptable. And you've seen that in many parts of the country at these universities. We banned these hiring these diversity statements or whatever. Literally, they would make you say these things, and if you weren't willing to do that, then you were totally persona non grata. You had no chance to get hired. So what you've seen is, and we have the Hamilton Center at University of Florida, they've brought in really amazing scholars to be a part of that. Now, we've also, for a couple years, provided a lot of resources. So we did I think the last 2 years has been $100 million each year for universities to be able to offer added compensation. And some of that is to keep some of the good ones that they have here, but some of it's also to entice some of these folks from some of these other parts of the country. And it's ripe. It's ripe because as you've seen kind of the out-of-control woke ideology overtake a lot of these universities, you've got a lot of people that, they've dedicated their lives to being involved in higher education, and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. I believe in truth. I believe 2 plus 2 equals 4. I don't think 2 plus 2 equals 8. And we have to have a grounding in the truth, and you've seen a lot of that veer away where ideology has taken over. So there's a lot of people that want to be in an environment that is really focused on the pursuit of truth, where voices are welcome to be able to have very robust debates. And we've had some great debates on our campuses throughout the state of Florida where people come in from opposing viewpoints and are able to do things. Part of, I think, moving away from the indoctrination bent was our first in the nation, again, legislation to eliminate DEI and focus on merit. And the DEI, some people say, was well-intentioned to start. I don't really know because I wasn't involved in that, but I can tell you how it was practiced was contrary to, I think, the values that we want to uphold, which is merit, achievement, people being treated on the basis of their abilities, not being divvied up by things that are not pertinent to their aptitude. So we did that. Now I think that when we did that, we were going up against the teeth of this, because I guess 2020, 2021, 2022, that was like the wave, right? And so we come in and said no, and oh man, we got a lot of flack for doing that, but now the tide has kind of shifted. And so the wind's at the back. So I know more and more states have done that. And obviously, the Trump administration has leaned heavily against the DE&I for that. And I would say they said it was diversity, equity, inclusion. The way it was practiced around this country was division, exclusion, and indoctrination DEI. And that obviously has no place in our public university system, especially funded by tax dollars. So we are going to focus on merit. We're not going to change standards. We're not going to play games. We want to attract good people. We understand good people come from a wide variety of backgrounds, but ultimately you got to be judged on merit and achievement, and that's really what we're doing, what's really, really important. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in implementing that. It wasn't necessarily easy initially. Now I think we're in a little bit better place. We also are you can't be all things to all people when you're talking about higher education. So much of higher education in the last many decades in this country has embraced just whatever the latest ideological fad is. And so you see some of the courses that are offered and things that are just, different from what had been the core of a classical education and, classical liberal arts. As much as we talk about STEM and engineering, math, it's all important, but really classical liberal arts is something that can really help prepare people to understand things, to think sharply, to think clearly. And I know that we've had universities around the state that have really eliminated some of the fluff on the course offerings. And I think that that's really good. You'll go to some of these places around the country, and if you want to study the foundations of America, how did our republic come to be? How did the revolution? We're going to have the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in a year. How did we end up launching the country? What went into all that? Honestly, you don't really find very good offerings in many parts of this country. They want to focus on other things. They want to make it about ethnicity and gender and race and everything and see everything through that prism instead of really having students grapple with some of the big ideas that were prevalent at the time. And we actually, one of the things that we've done in our K-12 is we've put a renewed emphasis on American civics. And we had you got to learn the Federalist Papers, you got to learn this, you got to learn that. Great, but you also got to have teachers that understand all that stuff, are passionate about it, and can communicate that and provide the adequate instruction for the students. And what we were finding out was a lot of the teachers, through no fault of their own, they're going, they're studying, they weren't offered these types of courses. And so we created a program where if you go through, it's a 50-hour course, you can watch it online, you get a $3,000 bonus, and it's not just civics teachers. I mean, history teachers can do it, English teachers, because we think the civics is the foundation of everything that flows in many respects in the U.S. So they're doing it, but they're actually, we've gotten great scholars, and they're teaching about, okay, how did like British common law affect how the founding fathers understood, you know, the Constitution? What about the Enlightenment? What about the Judeo-Christian tradition? All these things. And people, it's like 92% of the folks that go through the course are appreciative and say it was good. So we want to focus on real serious academic rigor. We want to focus on things that really matter, things that are enduring. We do not want to waste someone's education with 4 years of boxing with some ideological fad that just may happen to be the flavor of the day, that has no lasting value beyond the present circumstances. And I think we've done a good job of doing that, but I think we've got a lot more to do. So we want to do it. The other thing that we've done is, while we very much bring in, I think our universities have made a point to bring in folks with views that may not be very prevalent on university campuses throughout the United States of America. We've had some robust debates. I mean, I participated in one of these at New College on the immigration enforcement. I mean, how many universities would ever want to host anything like that? It would just be, it would be a non-starter. So that's important, and we want to do that. But we also understand you have the right to your views. You have the right to express those views. You have a right to stand for those views. But you don't have a right to sabotage the academic process for others. If there's a debate on your campus and you want to get up and scream and yell at the speakers, that's not free speech. And we will hold you accountable. Not whatever you're screaming or yelling, we're not going to necessarily, that's not why we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to hold you accountable for your conduct and for your behavior. And so we made it clear, especially after the Hamas demonstrations, you are not commandeering our university campuses for your agenda. And I know they tried to take over the lawn at Florida State, and the university turned the sprinklers on and got them off that lawn very quickly. They tried to do it others, it didn't work. There were folks who went beyond just expressing views, and some of these views are very, you know, in my judgment, abhorrent, but that wasn't what they were punished for their behavior and their conduct, and people's degrees were withheld. You have to do that. If you don't hold people accountable for their behavior and the conduct, you will get more of that. So we've created an environment where people that are running universities have the backing to be able to uphold the appropriate standards of conduct. And, you know, you're at like some commencement speech, and I don't think it happens at FAU, or maybe it did. I don't remember hearing anything. But, you know, you have someone, this is a major event for families, for the students, for a lot of the faculty who helped with this. You have someone that comes in. A lot of times there's someone that's pretty prominent that can come in and maybe give a commencement address. And you have like 15 or 20 students just screaming and disrupting and everything like that. That is unacceptable. I know they tried to do that at New College a couple years ago, and the president withheld their diplomas until they apologized to the university community and apologized to the commencement speaker. And I don't know if they were willing to do that, but I think that's totally appropriate. So, you know, we have great protections. We adopted the Chicago model of free speech across our universities. My first year as governor, we do that. But what I've seen going on in these other universities around the country is I've seen universities countenance bad behavior. And that's different than having a view you may disagree with. That's you trying to upend the entire academic process for other students, faculty, parents that are there watching, people that are watching a debate unfold. So we're going to continue to hold people accountable. And I think what happens is, if you let the inmates run the asylum, the inmates are going to run the asylum. They're not just going to sit on the sidelines and twiddle their thumbs. But if you uphold standards of conduct, then a lot of times it's just not worth sacrificing a degree or having some type of punishment for this behavior. And I don't really know why universities have become places, I know this started probably in the 60s, but why universities have been the place where you have some of this. But I think what's happened is a lot of the administrators and some of the faculty around the country, this is behavior that they want to see. I mean, I think that this is like, those are the kind of their people. That's not what we're doing here in Florida, and I know people are appreciative of that. And I know a lot of our students and families were really appreciative of how our universities responded after the October 7th. The fact of the matter is, you were safe in Florida as a student. As a Jewish student, but even as any student, you were safe. There was never any possibility that we were going to allow any of our universities devolve into like a Columbia University. It just wasn't going to happen. And people will point to Florida and they'll say, yeah, Florida, you're lucky you go to Florida because that didn't happen there. But it's not luck. It's just the fact that people know any president of a university that would allow their campus to devolve into a Columbia in the state of Florida would no longer be a president of a university in the state of Florida. I mean, we would have very swift accountability because our leaders need to lead and they need to do what's right. So there's a lot that's gone into higher education over the years. We're really leading the country. I mean, like we do in almost everything, but on this, we've really been, I think, ahead of the curve. We were engaging in this when nobody was talking about it, and a lot of people just thought it was a lost cause. Don't even worry. I remember people that were more conservative, just tell people never to go to college or whatever, and my view, I'm not just going to give up on institutions. I want these institutions to be sound. I want them to be productive, especially with our tax dollars. And so we knew one of the major pieces of legislation we did a few years ago was getting at this issue, and it's kind of in the weeds because, but there's a reason why some of the things we don't like about universities over the many decades have happened, and it goes back to this accreditation cartel that's developed. So you need to get accredited if you want to be able to have, your students, for example, if you're not accredited, they're not eligible for federal student aid. Now, our students don't need that as much because it's a lot cheaper here than if you're going to some of these schools. And look, if you're paying $80,000 in tuition to go to MIT and you take out loans, you'll probably be fine doing that. But what gets me is there'll be these fourth-tier private universities. They expect you to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans, and then you get a degree that's not worth the paper it's printed on. I mean, that is a huge problem. So you have this accreditation where you got to go through it, and it's not just undergraduates, it's also law schools, medical schools, and all these things. And who are these accreditors? Did you elect any of these accreditors to anything? No. It's kind of just a self-selected, these juntas kind of have developed where the Department of Education in the past has approved them to be accreditors, and so they basically don't have accountability. And so we've seen that certainly with the American Bar Association, the medical accreditor, the medical accreditation, and then we have this SACS in the Southeast, which is done. And what do they do? Part of the reason the university have done what they do is because the accreditors are telling them they have to do these things. So when we said no DEI, the accreditor was telling our universities, oh, no, you're not going to get accredited unless you do DEI. Who the heck are they to say what our universities have to do? They're telling them they can't follow state law? Are you kidding me? And nobody elected them to make that judgment at all. So what we've seen develop is an accreditation cartel, and the accreditors, by and large, are all singing from the same sheet of music, and it's not what the state of Florida wants to see reflected in its universities in many different respects. So we did a bill. We said to the state university system and our board of governors, and we have our chancellor here, we need alternative accreditation. We can't keep doing this. First of all, we're not going to do it. We eliminated DEI, and we said very clearly, if you're going to pull our accreditation, go ahead and make my day. We will fight you on that. That's fine. But we were in a situation where it takes some time to do this, to have a new accrediting body, and it also requires the approval of the U.S. Department of Education. Now, when under the Biden administration, do you think that the state of Florida would have had a very good chance to get the auto pen on our accreditation overhaul? Probably not. And so that was not something that obviously they saw eye to eye on us with. Fortunately, under the Trump administration and under Secretary Linda McMahon, they believe in overhauling this accreditation process. They want to have new blood in the system. They want to be able to have competing accreditors. And I can tell you, what we're announcing today, I bet you every state in the Southeast is going to rush to want to be accredited by what we're going to be talking about today. But this has had a really negative impact on higher education, the way this is developed, and our reforms here are vitally needed to be able to make sure that our institutions are operating based on sound principle. And if you think about what's happened, and this is not unique to higher ed, I mean, this is kind of the story of the woke era. I think that we're over the hump on that in Florida. We've been over the hump for a while because we killed it here. But overall, throughout the country, I do think we're over the hill here. Although I guess New York City mayor race may say something different. We'll see what happens there. But what's happened during that era, we saw it during COVID too, institutions really became corrupted by ideology. And they were putting ideology ahead of the pursuit of truth. During COVID, so many of these medical associations put ideology over evidence-based medicine. Even today, you have people like the American Society of Pediatrics opposing the Supreme Court's ruling that said states can say you can't perform sex changes on 13-year-old kids. Like, no, we're not going to do that. And they're saying they don't have evidence that this is good, but it's part of their ideological posture. It's part of their belief system, so they're doing. So you've seen that in medical. You've seen that in law with the American Bar Association. The American Bar Association has now become a far-left activist group. And you know what? You have every right to be a far-left activist group, but our law schools should not be captive to having to bend the knee to get accreditation from you. That should not be the way it works. And so we're really looking for a new day here. All of those groups, all of those accreditors, certainly on the DEI, they've been all in on. Our belief and actions to streamline and focus the course offerings on core subjects that really matter. The accreditors fight us on that. You know, they think that you need to have all these kinds of esoteric studies that are just not part of what a classical education is all about. So there's one thing after another that we have to do and we have to fight against. And so now we have a possibility of having a new day. So today, the legislation that we did a couple years ago was important. We have worked on kind of plowing the ground to be able to get into position to move forward in a way that we could have success. And I know that these guys have been working with the U.S. Department of Education under President Trump now for many months. And so I'm proud today to be able to announce that we are, in fact, establishing a new accreditor for higher education, and we're calling it the Commission for Public Higher Education. So this endeavor will introduce a new accreditor into the marketplace. It'll upend the monopoly of the woke accreditation cartels, and it will provide institutions with an alternative that focuses on student achievement rather than the ideological fads that have so permeated those accrediting bodies over the year. Now, this commission is a consortium of higher education systems from several states offering a new accreditation model. And again, we care about student achievement. We care about measurable outcomes. We care about efficiency. We care about pursuing truth. We care about preparing our students to be citizens of our republic. All those things have played second fiddle, if they were even given any credence at all, under these more prevailing accreditation model. So we will establish rigorous, transparent, and adoptable outcomes-based accreditation standards and practices. This will ensure that colleges and universities meet and maintain academic quality and operational excellence on behalf of their students. This will also ensure that reforms enacted under my tenure as governor by the state university system continue to have an impact for many years to come. So the way this works is we're establishing it. You kind of got to go and actually do it for, some period of time. I think USDOE wants to be quick on this, and so eventually they will approve this accreditor as a valid accreditor. So if your institution gets accredited by this new accreditation consortium, that satisfies federal requirements, federal law for United States Department of Education. And that's a big, big deal. And it's important that it get done. And one of the reasons why right out of the gate we've been kind of working with the Trump administration on this is we need this and other competing accreditors. We need these things approved and implemented during President Trump's term of office. The reality is if it doesn't get approved and stick during that time, you can have a president come in next and potentially revoke it. And they could probably do that very quickly. If we get this done, we do the trial run that we do have to do, we get approval, it starts to stick. All the states, I think almost all the states in our region are going to be favorable to this. Then you could develop a track record. Then it's almost impossible for a future federal administration to try to upend the apple cart. So this has been a long time coming. Obviously, we didn't really have the prospects of launching anything like this successfully during the Biden years, but it's a new day, and I think this is going to make a big, big difference. And the thing about it is people ask me, well, what's wrong with the universities? Why does Harvard do this? Why did Columbia, all this stuff? And this stuff didn't just happen by accident. There's incentives that have been built in for many years that have shaped the type of outcomes that we're seeing and the behavior that we've witnessed, and the accreditation cartel has been a big part of that. And it's not something that gets a lot of headlines. It's not something that a lot of people follow. But I just think it's wrong to have a bunch of folks that nobody put there. I don't even know how they get in these spots, but they exert all this power over our educational institutions. And so that stops today. Florida and our neighboring states, our sister states who are joining us in this effort, we're going to have the last say on that. So thanks everybody for this.